Hi, today we are going to talk about the angles that are formed when we have two parallel lines with a transversal. So first thing let's talk about is what's a transversal. A transversal is a line that intersects two parallel lines. So what I have here on the screen is actually an example of, here's two parallel lines, and then this line is a transversal because you'll see it's crossing both of these parallel lines. So there are some facts about all of these little angles that are created in here when we have this transversal. For example, let's say that this is 75 degrees. Well, first fact is that an angle that is across from it in two intersecting lines is called a vertical angle, and they're congruent. So right here, here's my two intersecting lines. I don't want to go right next to it. I don't want to go right next to it. I go instead across from it. If they're congruent, that means that this is also 75 degrees. There's your first fact. Okay, another fact. Another fact is that if I have an angle here, this is called an exterior angle, because you'll notice here's my two parallel lines, and this is on the outside of the two parallel lines. Well, we have what's called an alternate exterior angle, where I go to the other side on the outside, and I have to go to the other side of the transversal. Okay, so it has to be on the opposite parallel line on the opposite side of the transversal. This is called an alternate exterior angle. It is also 75 degrees, okay, because alternate exterior angles are congruent. Let's take a look at this one right here. We also have what's called an alternate interior angle. So I go to the other parallel line. I have to stay on the inside because I'm talking about interior angles. And I go to the other side of the transversal. These two angles are congruent because they are alternate interior angles. Now I'll tell you, we could have also known this was 75 just because these are vertical angles. That's what's cool about these is there's a ton of ways to find all of these angle measures. So there we go. We're halfway done finding all the angles. Well, let's take a look at this right here. These two angles are right next to each other on a straight line. Therefore, they are supplementary angles. So that means 75 plus something equals 180 because supplementary angles make a straight line, which is 180 degrees. So you could solve that in your calculator. 180 minus 75, that equals 105 degrees. Okay, so I was able to solve that because these are supplementary. Well, now I can fill in all these other missing angles knowing these facts about transversals, about the angles formed with a transversal line. So here we have an exterior angle. So if I go to the other parallel line on the outside, but the opposite side of the transversal, this is also going to be 105 degrees because it's an alternate exterior angle. Okay, well, let's look at these. We're only missing two angles. These are vertical, so we know it's 105 degrees because vertical angles are congruent. And we can solve this last one many, many, many different ways. But using the vocabulary of a transversal, we have this is an interior angle. So I go to the other parallel line still on the inside, and then the other side of the parallel line. This is the alternate interior angle, and it is congruent, so it's also 105 degrees. So using those few facts, I'm able to find all the missing angles of that are created when I have two parallel lines that are intersected by a transversal. We're going to go ahead and look at another example. Here I have two parallel lines intersected by a transversal. So same idea as what I had before. Well, let's say that this one is, I don't know, 117 degrees. Okay, 117 degrees right here. Well, knowing that, we have to know at least one angle. But if we know one angle, we can fill in all of these other missing angles. So, first off here, this one's vertical because I don't go right next to it. I don't go right next to it. Instead, I go across from it, and it's congruent if it's a vertical angle. Well, now this is the outside or the exterior of my parallel line, So I'm going to go to the other parallel line on the outside, but it can't be the same side of the transversal. It has to be the other side of the transversal. These are called alternate exterior angles, and they are congruent, so I know that this is 117 degrees as well. Well, I have this interior angle. See, it's inside, it's in between the two parallel lines. So I can use my alternate interior angle fact. I go to the other parallel line inside. Excuse me. And then I have to go to the other side of the transversal. And boom, it's 117 degrees because they are congruent. Honestly, we could have also known that because these are vertical angles and therefore they're congruent as well. So we're halfway done. Now let's take a look at this smaller angle. Because it is right next to 117 degrees on a straight line, these two angles are supplementary. That means when they add together, they equal 180 degrees. So 117 plus something equals 180. So to solve that, all you have to do is 180 minus 117, and you get 63 degrees. So I used the fact that they are supplementary angles to find this 63 degrees. Now, these two are vertical angles because they're across from each other, not right next to it, not right next to it, but across from it. They're vertical angles, which means they are congruent, so they're the exact same thing. And let's fill in these last two. You can probably guess what they're going to be, but I'll go through it anyway. This is on the exterior, means the outside of those parallel lines. So I'm going to go to the other outside of the parallel lines. That has to be the opposite side of the transversal. It can't, this looks like it's on the bottom of the transversal. It can't stay on the bottom. We go to the top, and that's 63 degrees. And here's an interior angle. So we go to the other side of the parallel lines, other side of the transversal, and it is also 63 degrees. So that is finding angle measures given two parallel lines and a transversal.